want to welcome Rose Bates.
Thank you. So, good morning. I'd like to thank everyone here, Olivia, Michael, and the whole staff for making this possible, and those in the live stream. You know, it's your presence that makes this a conference. If it wasn't for all of you and the energy you bring, it just wouldn't be what it is, because it's not just about information and facts, it's about energy. So we're going to explore this morning some ideas of Christ consciousness, love, and the inner self. Many of these ideas have already been touched on this morning and yesterday. So this is a good reinforcement. And if time permits, we'll have a short meditative video at the end. So the Christ principle, it is said that the Christ principle can be found at the heart of every atom, whether the atom of the scientist or the atom which we call a human being or a solar system. The heart is the anchor of life and distributor of love. The hope of glory is the ever-perfecting realization of this Christ nature within us and its living expression without. So what is the Christ principle? The Christ principle at the heart of all is the latent germ of love, or the Buddhi nature. All form, all matter is latent with this divinity. We remember that matter is spirit at its lowest point, and spirit is matter at its highest. And that apparent duality is but a unity. We also know there is naught but life which pervades all. A trestle board is a board upon which designs or blueprints are placed. There's a wonderful phrase from the builders of the Atrium, the BOTA, on what they call the pattern on the trestle board. It goes, "In all things, great and small, I see the beauty of the divine expression." So, what is the Christ nature and consciousness? Without getting into too much technical details, one way to look at it would be the Christ principle is the seed. The Christ nature is the flowering of that seed. And the Christ consciousness is the aroma of the flower. The Christ consciousness is the triple realization, expression, and manifestation outwardly of this divine latent principle of love within. Realization through knowing and identification. Expression through being and livingness. Manifestation through radiation. The effect of expressed living and being. In his book, Finding the Christ, Donald Curtis points out that the Christ teaching far predates the birth of Jesus, the man. It is an eternal teaching of love, wisdom, peace, purity, and wholeness found in many great writings. This truth is expressed beautifully, brightly, and fully through Jesus, the great example, part legendary, part historical, part symbolic, part allegorical being, who is the central figure of Christianity. And this is a very good book. If you have an interest in Christianity along more of the mystical, broader terms, it's a very good read, and it's a short little book. So Christ is the example. By the imitation of the Christ, the entire transfiguration of our being takes place. And all three aspects of our manifesting nature shine forth as a mind sensitive and clear, as a heart dedicated to love and action, and with our bodies as a purified chalice to manifest the daily living, the Christed life. And all of this is brought about by way of the path. The path of return, as it is called, but returning to what? That journey of realization of who and what we really are. Perhaps even more importantly, of what we are not. The ageless wisdom and mystery teachings throughout the millennia of human history give us the keys to this journey of self-discovery. Man, know thyself, has been a common injunction. Quote, heed these words, you will wish to probe the depths of nature. If you do not find within yourself that which you seek, neither will you find it outside. If you ignore the wonders of your own house, how do you expect to find other wonders? In you is hidden the treasure of treasures. Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods. This path of return covers many parts we are well familiar with. The study of the true nature of things, the constitution of man, the planes, the rays, and the symphony of the stars, all of which are the self. And the study of that which is the not self, and the path of purification with its refinement and redemption of matter. We fit matter for love, someone once said. The refinement of our bodies, which form the casket hiding the reality, hiding the indwelling life, the process of unveiling this, so that one by one these bodies are brought to a point of transparency, permitting the full shining forth of our inner divine nature. An expansion of consciousness, which is brought about through the ability of the self to identify with its real nature as the onlooker and no longer regard itself as the organ of perception. This is pure being. Well, maybe Michael would say that's a little, pure being is monad, but I use being. For the organ of perception is more than the body alone. It is that which is the sense of I-ness versus beingness versus isness. The onlooker is the beingness. It is the spirit. It is the fully realized self in form. Matter and spirit are now a unity, as they ever have been, but now they are so consciously. And we have the new man in Christ. So now let's talk about the heart. The heart is a center of vortex. The Tibetan says it is the register of energy and is the center of loving, giving energy and distributor of life. It relates the fragment of our incarnated self to the soul and thus to the hierarchy. The heart center is the agent of the soul and that of the spiritual love. The heart center is magnetic in quality and radiatory in activity. It is the organ of the energy which brings about inclusiveness. Its dense physical expression is the thymus gland. It's interesting that it's not the heart organ itself, but this gland right above the heart. Medical science says that this is a specialized lymphatic organ located in front of the heart and behind the sternum. It plays an important role in our adaptive immune system. It continues to grow between birth and puberty, and then it begins to atrophy in a phenomenon known as organ involution, where it decreases both in size and activity. And then the tissue of the thymus is replaced by fat cells. So it's interesting. We are born and we have this gland that's related to our heart center, fully functioning and active, and then when we hit adolescence, it involutes. Why is this? The Tibetan goes on to say, of this little gland, little is at presently known, though much will be learned as the heart center develops and the thymus gland is returned to adult functioning activity, which is not yet the case. The nature of its secretion is not yet established, and the effects of this gland are better known from their psychological angle than the physical. Modern psychology, when allied to medicine, recognizes that this gland, when overactive, will produce the irresponsible and amoral person. As the race of men learns the nature of responsibility, group awareness, paralleling this development, we shall have a correctively active thymus gland. At present, the general imbalance of the endocrine system mitigates against the safe and full functioning of this gland. Awareness of the importance of this gland is quite common in the mass consciousness of the New Age and self-help movements. There are many books and courses on how to reawaken your thymus with claims of unlocking spiritual power and potential. But I wonder how many of them focus on the development of soul awareness and awakening the heart. In the mystery schools of ancient Egypt, the importance was known, and certain vowel sounds and chants were used for its stimulation. But I'm sure it was also as an aid in the parallel development of the heart. I wonder if there's some correlation between this atrophying and the sense of the little ego, the not self, that really starts to come into expression during adolescence. I wonder if it's not, would be overpowering the little ego, this seat of the soul, as it's been called. So it's necessary for its atrophication until we develop the heart. Young children are often associated with innocence and purity and a sense of lack of I-ness because they just are present, expressing in the moment. They don't care if they have food on their face or they're just living. And with a fully active thymus gland. The Tibetan goes on to tell us that as the heart center develops, the man is drawn into the ashram and becomes an accepted disciple. The master is himself the heart center of the ashram, and he can now thus reach his disciple via the soul because he has that alignment. He then becomes responsive to the heart of all things, which as far as humanity at present is concerned is the hierarchy. And it is said that when the Christ founds his focal point on earth, it will be in the nature of a tiny heart center, which the loving energy of the hierarchy can persistently flow. So now let's talk about love, that which the heart center is the agent of. The Tibetan's works are filled with thousands of references to love. To help us get a sense and feeling of what love is, we're going to spend some time on some quotes. And I thank Michael for quoting all the quotes that I deleted. So perfect. Love is spontaneous and ever carries the free spirit of Christ. Kind of like little children, right? They're spontaneous, they're loving. What is that saying? He who is like a little child may enter into the kingdom of heaven. The Tibetan goes on to say, until Christ came and lived a life of love and service and gave mankind a new commandment to love, there had been very little emphasis on God as love in any of the world scriptures. After he appeared as the avatar of love, then God became known as love supernal. Love is the goal and objective of creation, as the basic principle of relationships, and love working through all manifestation towards a plan motivated by love. This divinity, this divine quality, Christ revealed, and thus altered all human living and human goals. Energy follows thought, right? Alice Bailey tells us in Bethlehem to Calvary, only through love and service as the expression of love can the real message of Christ be understood and men pass onward towards a joyous resurrection. Love makes us humbler and at the same time wiser. It penetrates to the heart of reality and has a faculty of discovering the truth hidden by a form. The early Christians were simple in this way because they loved one another, because they loved Christ and they loved the Christ within each other. This is a powerful statement, one that we need to remember. Let's read that again. Love penetrates to the heart of reality and has the faculty of discovering the truth hidden by a form. Basically, love is reality. It is by this latent way, this potential of love, this Christ within, which is mankind's guaranteed salvation. It's in all of us. In instructions to his disciples, the Tibetan says, I would ask you to love blindly and unchangingly in spite of all that may happen, knowing that love stands unmoved amid the wreckage of all around and eternally loves. Love loves. I would ask you to be a strong hand in the dark to your fellow men because you are affiliated with the hierarchy, and the love and strength of the hierarchy can flow through you, through all of us, if you so permit. I would remind you in this time of trial that I, your master, love and guard you. For your soul and my soul are one soul. Be not unduly disturbed. There is no light or dark to the soul, but only existence and love. He continues on to say, rest back on that. There is no separation, but only identification with the heart of all love. The more you love, the more love can reach out through you to others. The chains of love unite the world of men and the world of forms, and they constitute the great chain of hierarchy. The spiritual effort you are asked to make is that of developing yourself into a vibrant and powerful center of this fundamental, universal love. The hierarchy is asking all of us to be that. Watch with care your thoughts about each other and kill out at once all suspicion, all criticism, and seek to hold each other unwaveringly in the light of love. Suspicion, the most poisonous of all weaknesses, is this glamour. It is usually the most false, and even when well-founded, is still capable of poisoning the very roots of being, of distorting all attitudes to life, and of bringing into activity the creative imagination as its potent servant. Suspicion ever lies, but lies with such apparent truth that it seems only correct and reasonable. You have no idea of the potency of such an effort, or of its power to release each other's bonds and to lift the group to an exceedingly high place. You have the opportunity to demonstrate to each other the scientific value and power of love, regarded as a force in nature. Make this demonstration your endeavor, and you will release for each other all that is needed to bring about potent and vital changes in the life patterns and purposes of the group members. So we can see the emphasis and the importance he's putting on love as a fundamental basis for any group work. We know that thoughts are things, and that love is a substance. Like Michael talked about earlier in our astrology workshop, it's not only a substance, but it substands. It forms a foundation and supports. The Tibetan continues on to say, the first thing that has to be established in a group of disciples is love and trust. For without that, there can be no true transference of thought. And a group is only a group if there's this telepathic interplay. Your service must be one of a potent, loving contact. Your method should be that of deep interest in others. You are too occupied with the mental formulations. You have not, therefore, given the needed time and the heart of love to the deep need of those you meet, of everyone you meet, my brother. All need love and understanding. And this they need more than clearly enunciated occult truths. We love that one. No matter how true or wonderful, give them love and understanding. And you know, Alice Bailey said something similar in one of her talks, that it's far better to know the occult ways of service than it is to be an academic scholar on the stages of the Antakarana or this or that. So I got two more quotes, the best for last. Above everything else in life, give to all who seek your aid the fullest measure of love. For love releases, love adjusts and interprets, and love heals on all three planes. Seek to love more than you have ever believed was possible. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? That we can love more than we even think we can love. It is by way of love that we manifest the Christ consciousness. So what do we do if we do not experience this beautiful, spontaneous, radiant love, which is impersonal because it's unconditional, of any requirements, but just as a natural radiation of one's own inner essence and being? I want to be the soul. I know I am in theory, but I sure don't feel like it. Sometimes maybe, but usually I don't really know who or what I am. Now you're asking me to love? Well, they don't say, fake it till you make it for nothing. That is actually a very occult act. It's acting as if. We act as if we are the soul in active expression. And if we can't love impersonally, then let's love personally. But wait, personal love is of the personality. And well, you know, the Tibetan would never tell us to love from the personality, right? Well, maybe he does. To one of his advanced disciples, he tells her, perfect love casts out fear. Your personality is not on the line of love, but of power. It fears love and the expression of love. Your co-disciples love and will love you increasingly. At present, you do not let them love you, and you misunderstand and misinterpret them. Where there is little real love, there is little true comprehension. When you function as a soul, you love much and quite impersonally. You are not yet a master, however, and so unable to give impersonal love without hurting. A lot of people think impersonal love is being cold or being, I love you, but I'm not going to touch you. I love you, but, I'm not going to get personal. Therefore, there is need for you to love personally also. I will aid you where I can, and I give you my personal love. My impersonal love has always been yours. So let us look at a moment at this. Perfect love casteth out fear. Why? Because perfect love is reality. It is the real. It is the essence of the truth, of that which is. In that understanding, there is no room for fear, for all is seen in its perfect isness. Beauty and perfect understanding of the Spirit. The soul recognizes its own being in all things, and hence there is no fear, for fear is not an aspect of itself. Love penetrates to the heart of reality, discovering the truth hidden. This is also why true comprehension is lacking, where love is lacking. Truth and love go hand in hand. They are two sides of the same coin. Why does the little ego or not self fear love? It does not know its true nature. Its misidentification is threatened. All that it is has been built up of what its identity is of who I am, melts away into the void of pure being. This can be a long process. It is oft bewildering to the sense of identity because it knows itself as I am not that, but not quite fully what I am is. There is a period of being lost. And this is sometimes called the dark night of the soul. It's really the dark night of the not self, the misidentified self. So now let's talk about the hope of glory. The AUM is the word of glory, the Tibetan says, and is the Christ in us, the hope of glory. The AUM is the union of spirit and matter. And as said earlier, matter and spirit are the same, basically. When these are consciously realized, then we have the flowering forth of the Christ within, the hope of glory. Christ knew what was in man, and therefore could be a savior. The incarnated human being is the self-conscious meeting ground of spirit and matter. In it is reflected the divine archetype, and the vastness of the macrocosm and the microcosm. In man, all of creation is reflected. As you see from this image, he has his foot on the land, the foot in the water, in the solar system, and beyond. We are needed. The critical situation upon the outer plane is only a reflection of still more critical inner conditions. You can give acceptable help if you invoke your own will and control your emotions, disciplining your personality. Thus, you will be able to be present, to present a tiny focal point through which the spiritual forces can work. Through the agency of the many tiny points of light. Oops, we weren't reading that. Through the agency of the many tiny points of light and will, much potency can be transmitted. The world today is in such a distressing condition that the major need in every country is the appearance of steadily shining points of light, of which can illuminate the way for others, based upon a clear scene of the issues involved. The smaller happenings of an individual's life can aid him in gaining facility and thus seen and shining. In doing this, we can aid in determining the pace and swell the numbers, small as yet, of those who constitute the lighted points. The living organism of aspirants and disciples can prove a center of peace, power, and love, of practical help and spiritual uplift, such as the world has not hitherto seen. Such is the hope. See you to it. You gotta love him, don't you? When he wrote his 24 books, it wasn't just to impart more esoteric information. It was a part of a wider tool to swell the ranks of the ashram in building a chalice to form for the energies of the Christ and the hierarchy. As we know, through attunement, a linking of all many minds in forming this chalice. Many are needed. Christ cannot reappear without a large number of humanity in which to carry his energy and that of the externalizing ashrams. You might recognize the author of that image. There is the gift of being these embodied qualities. There is also the gift of realizing that because one does embody some divine attribute in some measure, large or small, he's talking about all of us, large or small. We don't have to be perfected souls expressing ourselves, just any measure. One can act as a channel for its transmission from the greater center. This is the basis of the doctrine of avatars, or divine messengers. The gift of being and the gift of deliberate transmission of qualified powers must be better understood. Such is the potential in each and every one of us. Oops. So when we look at another person, what do we see? Do we let the form of appearances blind us from the absolute, incredible, radiant beauty and splendor of the divine within? About 5 or 6 years ago, I went to an exhibition called The Bodies. It's a display of the human body in intricate detail, the magnificent universe within. As I was walking through and looking at the different displays in wonderment, I stopped at one and gazed into the eyes, thinking to myself the phrase, the eyes are the windows to the soul. But nobody was home. I was struck with the stark contrast between this vacant house and a house incarnated with a living being. It had such an effect on me, I was moved to tears. at the sheer and utter magical beauty of the indwelling self in another human being. That is all right in front of us every day. More recently, I got the privilege to experience this again on a deeper and more profound level when came the time for the liberation of my own father from his house. I got to experience his real self, who he really is without the fetters of the form. I experienced him as the most incredible joy, joy without limit, and boundless and radiant love. I understood at that moment the true meaning of the phrase, fragment dwelling within the body. For his form could not ever contain or express all that he is. And then it dawns on you, that's what I am too. That's what we all are. If we could see people in this light as they really are, you don't have to try to love because it's automatic. It's spontaneous. For a glimpse of reality is grasped, and in that moment, all is love. So what are we? Yes, I have to quote the Tibetan again, but I'm not sure I have a lot of time, so I'm going to summarize. Oh, wait. Actually, this isn't on the slide. He says, the disciple knows or is learning to know that he is not this or that, but life itself. He is not the physical body, the emotional nature, or the mind, that by which he knows. He is learning to be that too, but transcended and superseded by intelligent love, only truly possible after the mind has been developed. Then he begins to realize himself as the soul. Then later comes the awe-filled moment in time, when penetrating in space, he discovers that he is not the soul. What then is he? A point of divine dynamic will, focused in the soul, which is the fragment, and arriving at awareness of being through the use of the form, his body. He is will, the ruler of time and organizer in time of space. This he does, but ever with the reservation that time and space are the divine playthings and can be used or not at will. So here we are, spiritual beings having a human experience. We forget what we are. We forget from what we came from. It reminds me of that movie Avatar. That form is down on this planet, but they're up in this ship above, and they say, I'm going in. It's like the soul going in for meditation. And then they go in this little chamber, and then they're now incarnated in this big blue creature with a tail on the planet. That's very similar to what we do. We are that self, and we go into deep meditation, and we accept limitation, and we incarnate into our bodies, and then we forget. Oh, what's going on? Oh, this must be what's real. But when the weight of samsara and Mara take their toll, we enter the dark night of the soul. On the path of return, we place our feet. And as the great cyclic wheel turns, we find ourselves again at the portal, shedding our worn-out mortal coil. Liberation again we know, joy unbound, joy profound. So why wait till that day? Let us not forget what we are. Let us not forget love. Let us not forget reality. Let us see the divine in everything and move into that life till it pervades our consciousness and transforms our whole being into a radiant, shining point of light. And we take our stand as the new woman or man in Christ, the Christ within revealed. So I'd like to express my love to all of you incredible, beautiful beings having a very human experience. And since we have time left, actually 40 seconds over, I'd like to end with a little meditative video. It's a chant. It's only 3 minutes long, and it is Om Namo Guru Dev Namo. It means, I bow to the divine self within. Thank you.